So we are in the middle of talking about trust. And we were saying, we were up to really is discussing how a trusting person is happy in whatever the situation is because they trust God, that he only will do what's for his good. Just like you think of a mother, that the mother, I mean, hopefully in any healthy situation, a mother will take wonderful care of her child and not based on per se what the child is asking for, so to speak, but what the child needs. And I know before we were talking, because usually like a construct for an example is financial areas, but in all areas, I was discussing with one of my children. I mean, not like a little child, he's like, almost 27. And he was asking about a certain area in my life, a certain thing going on in my life that's a painful area. And like, well, how do you process that, Mom? I said, I process that I trust God. I trust God. And I know everything's from him. So I'm looking at this area and I'm like, okay, it's God. And all I can do is pray to God that the good should be revealed, that it's you, I know, that you're good, I know, that what you're doing is good, I know. But honestly, my brain doesn't see it as good. So my prayer is that the good should be revealed. Not that it should be good, because I know he's God, but that the good should be revealed. So we've been talking for a few weeks back and forth about the idea of trust, but we never really defined it. How would you define it? Or what's the roots of trust? Or how would you describe someone that has trust? Any thoughts?
I think the word integrity aligns with it, but that's just kind of maybe a little weird. But
Okay, integrity.
when you
Integrity
trust,
in the one you're trusting.
yeah. And I think also just, I mean, on a maybe a macro scale, when you trust somebody, A, their word is good, and B, they're going to follow through on what they say they're going to do most of the time.
Exactly. So you're ready to jump into my next question. You jumped ahead because your answering is really my next question. But yeah, integrity, that there's follow through, that you can rely on them. You're trusting someone, that means they're reliable. They're going to keep their word. They're going to come through for you. Ruth, any thoughts how you would define or describe the idea of trust or a person who's a trusting person?
I need to know the person, the institution to if they have their ethics or reputation to be able to trust. If we talking about humans, but if we talking about God, of course, I think most of the people we know who God is, so we trust. But one of the things that I'm learning a lot from you guys, the Jewish community, is that where I come from, they trust is really like a very vague thought that, for example, they said, I trust this person, but maybe he or she can't do it, or this institution will not be able to follow up or comply with what they're supposed to do. So it's not really a concise and direct platform, that is always a vague thing. It's part of the culture, I guess, and Christianity, that is nothing really trustful. But in your community, Torah, for example, says that people may know you as your yes, yes, and your no, no. That it has to be either or, so you can figure it out if they can follow through or not to trust. What and in any issue, I mean, if you, for
To be
example,
trustworthy. You're talking like Ashes about people that are trustworthy, that you can trust. Who
right.
would you trust? And you're saying, if you're saying it culturally, or maybe because of all the rules and commandments, sort of breeding trustworthy people in a very practical way.
Yes.
So both of you sort of went in the same direction. What I really was asking, but then I was going to go into this, so we're not so off course, was like trust. What is trust itself? And I think trust is, I think the best way to sort of experientially discuss it is tranquility. When you're really tranquil inside, because, and this is like Ruth brought this out sort of in what she was saying, the difference between trusting God and trusting man. Even a very trustworthy man is human, is limited, can mean well, and mess up, could have limited resources, could have limited knowledge, we all know that. But we're talking about trusting God, and we're absolutely relying on God to do what's good, to do what's right for me. Well, that's based on absolute confidence that God will have, as Ash said, integrity, that he will do all he says he will do, and God will do everything to benefit us out of pure grace, pure kindness. Meaning, if I felt, well, God's trustworthy, but maybe I don't deserve it, I couldn't be so tranquil, because there's all these situations going on. And who am I to feel that I deserve it? How can I? It's not that I have a problem with God. I wonder about myself. How can I rely on myself to be worthy of God's grace? But we're saying no. Trust means that God, out of pure grace, out of pure kindness, comes through for us. So both of you went in the direction of what does it mean? Like, why do we trust? Who can we trust? And the work that we're studying actually enumerates 7 qualities that God possesses, that only God absolutely possesses. And because of those 7 qualities, yeah. Hi, Carol. Thanks you joined. Because of those 7 qualities, we can trust him. So what do you think? What are the qualities God possesses that we trust him because of those qualities? Like, it's sort of hard to break, well, I mean, he's God, I trust him. But if you break it down, what is it about God that creates in us such a rock solid sense, more than a sense, rock solid reality? God's coming through. And I'm saying, even in things in our life that are painful, I have no doubt, like zero, it's God, it's good. This is not how I define good. I don't understand how this is good. I would like to see how this is good. I would like the good to unfold, but that is good. That is God. No question on that. So what are those qualities of God that enables us, we're not the most spiritual people out there, most philosophical people out there, but just knowing this about God? Any ones you'd like to raise? Ruth?
Well, justice, his justice, his loyalty to his word, to his promises. So I know we can trust. I mean, I have no doubt. We don't have a doubt about it. He is his loving kindness. He's kind. He's because as Scripture says that his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. So I know is absolutely worth it to trust, and I know he's loyal to everything he promised. So there's no way that I will not be able to trust.
Absolutely. So that's all like one foundational. It's really the first thing you think about. God's absolute love, absolute compassion, absolute empathy, absolute loyalty. For sure. That's the foundation of everything, is knowing that's God's relationship to us. Any other ideas? What else besides those, which is the foundation of everything? So that's definitely the first thing you think about, and Ruth got it right on target. In addition to being absolute loving, Carol, what are you going to add?
I was going to add that he created us. So he has he wants things to go well for us to follow him because he created us.
Okay.
And
so because he created us, I would veer in 2 directions. One would be, I would view that as like what Ruth was saying. Because he created us, he absolutely loves us, and therefore is gonna make sure it's good for us. I think the other thing, because he created us, is because he created us, he knows us. He knows us better than we know ourselves. So he knows what's most beneficial for us. He knows what most can improve my life. He knows what's best for me. Because even if someone, if we would compare God to someone, so to speak, someone that has absolute love for you, like your parent, let's say, who else could we think of in the world has absolute love for us? Maybe your spouse, maybe your child. Your mother could absolutely love you, but she might not really know what's best for you. And she might think she knows what's best for you, but maybe she's wrong. And maybe she's going in the wrong direction, and that actually won't be good for you. But with God, like Carol said, he created us. He knows us. He's aware of what's best for us. And not only does he have the absolute love, but he has the absolute, we'll call it knowledge, awareness that he is actually going to do what's best. Any other thoughts? Any other things that are part of the puzzle of why so our trust can be so strong? It's interesting. I was learning, I believe it was literally this section of this work with someone, not with this class. It was in May, and I was learning it. And like 2 days later, my son had a very bad accident, my 12-year-old, and it was very intense in the hospital. And I kept reviewing that whole night. I kept reviewing these concepts. Like I kept reviewing God's absolute love and all the other things on the list. And it was just like, this is it. This is all God. He's coming through. And thank God he did. My son is, as I tell him, a triple medical miracle. He's gone through many hard things medically, and somehow God always pulls him through. And it was like, no, this is God, and we trust, and God's coming through. So what else do we have on the list? So the first thing that's listed, this is all based on a work that really analyzes very deeply from the Jewish traditional perspective trust. So the first thing is, like Ruth said, and Carol might have been alluding to, absolute compassion, empathy, love. The second point, not only does God absolutely love us, but God really strives to resolve and fulfill our wishes, which could also connect back to what Carol was saying, but he created us. So he wants life to work for us. Because again, thinking in terms of people maybe in our lives, we can have people in our lives that love us, but they could still sometimes be neglectful of our needs. And if someone loves you, but they're neglectful of your needs, like maybe you had a parent that was very loving, but had other things going on in their life and weren't really there for you for your needs, well, you can't really trust them, even though they really love you. Third point, beyond absolute compassion, empathy, and love, in addition to really striving to be there for your needs, and this is a very important quality of God's that we can trust him with, is nothing can prevent God from doing what he wants to do. God's strength is limitless, meaning if someone absolutely loves you and really, really wants to be there for you, but maybe they don't have the power, maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they don't have the knowledge, so they still can't help you. Fourth point, this is what we were discussing before with Carol's concept on God creating us, that God knows us. He knows what's most beneficial and can really help us. And the fifth point is we are under God's exclusive care from the beginning of our life until the end. So we have sort of like a historical imperative, meaning we can look back at our life. We can look back at our life and see the hand of God. And if we didn't have that history, maybe it wouldn't be so natural to trust. But because of what God's come through for us again and again and again over the years in all these various ways, we could be tranquil. We can rely on him. We see historically he comes through. The sixth point, and this is also a very important point in really being tranquil in your trust, is that no one else can help or harm in any way. No human being, what they do makes any difference. And the more you realize this, the more you trust God. There is no one else to trust. Nothing else exists. Nothing else has power over you besides God. No one can help you besides God. No one can harm you besides God. And you can say, what are you talking about? So many people in my life have helped me, or conversely, so many people in my life have harmed me. But everything goes back to God. If we look, not that we want to speak about tragedies, but if we look at tragedies, yeah, they're human players. It goes back to God. Everything goes back to God. This person was so kind to you and so generous and so nice and so helpful, goes back to God. He wanted you to get that help. This situation was so horrible, goes back to God. He wanted you to have that situation. There's no force in the world that impacts us really besides God. And then from God, there's human intermediaries that do the work, but it all goes back to God. And the last point, which also is very important to have trust, and this is a point I was mentioning earlier when we were defining trust, God's absolute generosity and kindness to the deserving as well as to the undeserving. And that's a very critical point, because otherwise, as I mentioned before, you trust God, but you don't trust yourself. You trust God. Yeah, God's good. God's awesome. God's amazing. God knows all. God can do all. God's all loving, but I don't deserve it. The end. You don't have to deserve it. You have to trust. And your trust already makes you worthy, makes you deserving. The very act of trust creates the worth, creates that you are deserving of all you're trusting for. So I'm going to review this quickly, then I'm going to take Carol's comment. But I just think it's really important to think, and I'm saying personally for myself, as I was reviewing the list all night in the hospital when I was there with my son, it's very strengthening. If you really, like, so to speak, take this apart and analyze why we're trusting in God. Absolute compassion, empathy, and love for us. Absolute focus, wanting to make it good for us. Absolute power. Nothing can stop him. Nothing can prevent him from doing what he wants to do. Nothing and nobody. Knowing what's most beneficial. Knowing what will be best for me, which of course, many times I don't know what's best for me. Under God's exclusive care my entire life. I can look back at my history. I actually keep on my computer as a Word doc my miracles I had professionally, miracles I had personally. And sometimes if I'm feeling weak, I reread them. It's so strengthening when I look back at my history and see God's hand at play. And then I say, so too now. No one else has any power. He has all the power. He has absolute power. No one can help. No one can harm. It's just him. And he's going to be there for everyone, even people that seemingly are not deserving of his kindness, as long as we turn and trust. Carol, what were you going to add?
I was going to add that this week I had a severe health emergency happen. God intervened. He got my husband there who knew what to do, and I didn't die. So I am here.
Wow.
And I was trusting God that if I was ready to go, that's okay. But I wanted to be here because I've got some things going on in my family that, being the matriarch of the family, I felt that there were some things I could still add to the richness of the group.
The corollary of trust is living a life serving God. Meaning, if you trust God, but you don't serve him, it doesn't seem your trust is very real. Because if you really trusted and you really understood it's all God, it's only God, you'd want to serve. You want to serve actually as perfectly as possible to draw down all the blessings you're trusting God's going to give you. So in this work, it's expressed as if that a person should try to do as much as possible that God wants and keep away as much as possible from what he doesn't want, just as we want God to do what we are trusting in him to do. We have to serve God to the same degree. Has anyone here seen this in their lives, that as your trust deepens, your service also gets stronger? Or the converse, as your trust weakens, your service also weakens? Ruth, what's been your experience in that?
Well, I've been all my life confused about trust God. And I think it's because in my brain, it's completely different on your culture. You guys were learn who is God from day one. We didn't. We got all everything was a lie in Christianity, which means that I used to say I trust God, but in reality I didn't, because we always go with what I want, what I need, and what I like. It's not when we trust God, I'm learning from the Jewish community that it's not what I want, it's not what I like and what I need, because my wants, my likes, and my needs are not necessarily the best for me. So if I trust on anything, let's say a job, well, maybe he's not gonna give me the job I want, I like, is whatever is good for me. So I have to trust and see the light on his his way doing things, because it's the best for me. So I was trusting, but at the same time, when I didn't get what I want, oh no, he doesn't like me, he doesn't this, we know he's powerful, he can do whatever, but because we didn't get all the time what we want or what I like, we thought, oh no, I'm not worth it, he doesn't want to help me, whatever. But that's not trusting him. The trust is to see the light behind what we getting, regardless is ideal for me or not. So I'm learning to see the light and search for the light. Okay, what do I need to learn about this?
And trust
Whatever it
that
is.
light.
And as you said, you have to always look for those sparkles of light and find it and keep it, and always be gratitude all the time, before and after. So in the Christianity community, we never look things that way. So I'm washing on everything I learned and putting new stuff in there. So that's how I learned to trust God today.
That's sometimes what you have to do. And I think we were even discussing this in this class, how sometimes knowledge could be like a little small box, and we have to sort of break out of that little small box of our preconceptions, of our knowledge, of our awareness. And we have to break that down to be open to something much, much, much bigger.
I do agree with that. As your trust elevates, your service elevates. So I work in healthcare a lot, probably too much, but the area that I work in is very intense, and I see a lot of very life-changing events pretty much daily. But I've noticed either I or others have a lot more trust. Their whole demeanor is very different. And sometimes I feel like that has an impact on the outcome, but that's just what I see. If I'm stressed or if I'm not trusting, my whole team will feel that. When you're talking about your son, if you have the nurse that's very calm and trusting, that's very different compared to maybe someone who's anxious. And
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So that's one
I've
thing
got
that
to exude enough trust for all of us.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I see that a lot. I see that
Absolutely.
almost every day.
I'm sure you do. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Have to exude the trust and the strength and the determination. So continuing on, it is all God. So everything's God. Everything's good. Everything goes back to God. Why do people need to spend so much time and effort working? Now, Carol was saying every year she can have this crisis that she has to pull again on her strong, strong muscles of trust. Why? Why do we need to, why didn't God set up a system differently that we could focus our energies on serving him instead of having to expend so much of our energy on work? And he gives two answers. One answer, he says, is that the very process of work is our field of opportunity of service. As we're confronted with the challenges of the world, do we overcome them? Do we fall on our face in front of them? Have you seen this? Have you seen work as your arena of growth? That in your work, there's all these challenges and you have to constantly like remind yourself of your relationship to God, of in essence, your trust with God, to stay focused as an ethical, moral person in a world that might not be like that at all. Have you seen this? Carol, you're raising your hand. Have you seen this in the work arena?
Oh, yes, I have, because I worked in international as my job title. And I also was requested to work with one of our federal government agencies. And I turned that down because I did not think I could ethically and morally support what they were doing.
So that's an important point. I want to stop what Carol's saying here, because that is definitely something that goes back to this idea of being a trusting person. That, and this we did mention, I believe we touched on this maybe last week or previously, ethically and morally, as Carol said very eloquently, very appropriately, if I'm a trusting person and the work I'm being asked to do is not ethical or moral, a trusting person walks away from that job.
Right.
Because like Carol said, she walked away from that job. And that's exactly what a trusting person does. Because a trusting person says, my finances come from God. And if I really believe everything's from God, how could I take a job that contradicts ethics and morals and values? Like, what am I thinking? Well, because I need to earn money. Well, what do I mean? If I trust God, I know the money comes from him. So that's a perfect example, what Carol just said, of the arena of work being the arena of challenge, the arena of growth. So when Carol's in this, I don't know if it was a big dilemma or very obvious to her, but we could pretend it was a big dilemma. And, you know, she has this job, she needs this money. And she's like, no, it's not ethical what they're asking me to do. It's not moral what they're asking me to do. I can't do that. Well, if I can't do that, I can't have the job. All right, but I need the job. God will provide.
And do you want to know what he did?
What did he do? Briefly.
Briefly, I went to a place that offers jobs, and they said to me, we have this one over here, but I don't know if you're going to get it because you don't have your degree yet. And I said, that's okay. I'll go over and do it. On my way, God told me, stop in and see your friend over here who owns a business. So I stopped in and told him where I was going. He says, I know the guy that you're going to interview. Between the time I left and went to the interview, he called him and I got hired. And when you have 4 children, 3 of whom have health issues, that was a big thing. And then
with my son, I saw something that he was offered a certain job, which I felt was very not ethical. And I told him so very strongly. Obviously, he makes his own decisions in life. I think everyone he consulted with also told him they didn't think it was very ethical work for various reasons. But it was really hard for him because his friends were in this and they were making a lot of good money, and, you know, also wants to make good money. But in the end, he decided he was turning down the job. He just said, no, he's not, you know, for all the reasons everyone was explaining, he said, no, it's really not good to be in a not very ethical job. And he turned it down. And a few weeks later, a connection of his, it just sort of happened. This connection of his offered him a really good job. Obviously, so to speak, in a sense, not making the big bucks he turned down, but like in a much more appropriate, you know, no struggles to one's morals environment. And I felt, and I told him, and he agreed with me. He said he was thinking the same thing. He really felt it was God's rewarding him because he withstood that challenge, that God came through and gave him that opportunity. So Carol's seen it. I was sharing with my son. I don't know, Ash, Ruth, have you seen this idea of work being really an arena where there's the challenge of our growth? And that's why God would have us working, even though, hey, God, you could do it a different way. But God says, no, this is a great arena for you to grow or be challenged or fail.
Well, and not exactly on work line, but on my health. I used to suffer, severe allergies, and doctors always said that it was pollen, spring pollen, and actually was gluten.
Oh, wow.
So I decided stop the treatments, and I changed my diet, and suddenly everything changed. You know, the allergies came down immediately after 2-3 months to 20%, but I have to trust God. He's he's our healer, he's our doctor, and then what do the and then uh, everything is fine. I used to be sick all the time, like temperatures, headaches, body aches, like, and I was always sick, but it was gluten. It was I mean, if I'm going to an allergist, they're supposed to know, they're supposed to test you for all this food. I mean, I'm like, wow. So, and
Problem is there's
yeah,
so many things for them to test you for that they could be testing you for so many other things, and not the gluten's pretty common, but they could have tested you for so many other things they might not have. I don't know why, but again, everything is hand to God. What they
exactly.
test you for, what they don't test you for. But what you're saying is that you trusted in God, and that's sort of led you, like Carol is saying with her story, that she was walking to the interview or driving to the interview, and she felt God sort of directing her to stop off by this friend who was clearly the connection that made sure she got the job, though she wasn't qualified for it. And you're saying your trust in God sort of gave you this intuition, we'll call it,
Yes,
sense to look at your diet. And as you took charge of your own health and looked at your diet and monitored your diet, you were able to diagnose yourself and figure it out.
indeed.
It's interesting. I had a not so dramatic, but sort of similar situation where I was suffering from something, and I guess bad enough for me to go to a doctor because I generally don't go to doctors. And she said to me, "Oh yeah, like I could send you to an allergist." She said, "But like the likelihood of them finding it, and if they do find it, the likelihood of you being able to do anything about it, like well, like what if you're allergic to dust? Like
Right.
go deal with it." So I didn't go to her I didn't take the referral to go to a doctor, but I did think of someone I know who's in more natural health. And then I went to her, but she also was like, well, you tell me what you think you have a sensitivity to. And I knew right away what I had sensitivities to when she phrased the question that way. I just sort of never connected it. And then I stopped doing taking in those foods that I knew I had a sensitivity to, and everything cleared up. So yeah, sometimes we do have to trust God, and He does lead us one way or another to our revealed good. So why couldn't He have done that in the first place? Because there's the road of trust. Ash, what about you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Kind of on the spot. When
No,
you
no,
said
sorry,
about
not trying to put you on the spot. You
no,
can
it's
pass.
okay. No, I'm just thinking like trust in the workplace and being almost in the right place at the right time. I think that's a good way to put it, at least with my career. I can't think of anything in specific, but I remember there's been a lot of times where I've had patients and I'm like, oh, this was meant to be, or this was perfect. But I think the work I have is what I'm meant to do for right now. That doesn't mean it won't change, but I think I'm in a good place where I need to be to, aside from just helping others, that's my job. But I mean, just to, like you said, share, be like.
Danielle, okay, are you in a place where you could talk? Do you have any thoughts on that? How we're discussing what it says, how sort of like, well, if we're trusting God so much and all is Him, what do we have to work for? Why do we have to work for a living? I mean, that sounds like a facetious question, but it's meant very seriously. God runs the world. Why did He create the world in such a fashion that we have to work and spend so many hours of our life working? And a number of answers were given, and one that we're focusing on is how the very work arena is like a laboratory, or I don't know if laboratory is the right word, maybe a workout room, an exercise room for our relationship with God. And in the work arena, we are confronted with challenges that both help us grow, or we highlight our shortcomings, and through that process, deepen our trust in God. So have you seen that in the work arena? That the work arena specifically is an arena where you can see, yes, through work, not that the work is telling me trust more in God, but through the work and what we contend with in the work environment, this actually is fostering and deepening my relationship with God.
Oh, yes, definitely. I agree. And then something I remember you told me, Cyril, many years ago, it's God's will. It's all up to Him, but you have to do your part, and that's the work.
Absolutely. It is God's will, and He wants us to work. And doing our part, yes, in the financial realm is working, as versus staying home and saying, God, you're so creative. You are. You're so capable. You are. You're so loving. You are. So just, figure out every month a check in the mail or direct deposit. I know you're good for it. And God says, I could do that, but that's not healthy for you. It's healthy for you to do the work. It's healthy life, right? That's what it says in Job. Adam amal yulad, man was born to work. Work is good for you. And here we're saying work is actually an arena where, because of what we go through in work specifically, we can grow and we can actually deepen our whole relationship to God. So we're up to discussing, as our time is over, is, so if this is all true, which we definitely believe it is, then why seemingly do we see people that are such good people and it seems they're struggling? Again, here we're talking in terms of work, so you could say struggling financially. Ruth mentioned in health. There's many areas in our life of struggling, of pressures, of lack. But if talking about financial and working, why do people have to spend so much time and effort working? Or we could say more broadly, why does a righteous person sometimes earn money only after much toil and exertion? And you can have a sinner who's at ease, prosperity, comfort. What's going on? So that is to be discussed next week. Anyone has some final comments or questions they want to add? Carol?
I just wanted to say that if we are working, we can be also not only growing in our own thing, but shed light to other people. We can show kindness. We can show compassion, empathy, all the things that God wants us to do for our fellow.
Absolutely. And that's part of this whole concept of, through the work arena, this is like an area, an arena, opportunities for your growth. And definitely what you're saying, Carol, is a very, very true point, that as we're interacting with so many other people, of course, depending on your job, depending on who you interact with, some of us are working remotely and they interact with their computer. But if we're interacting with people, there's a lot of challenges and there's a lot of opportunities to be teaching moments. Every Noahide really needs to be a light to millions. So yes, it's very good to have an opportunity to interact with people and help them learn and come close to God. And it's an opportunity to spread kindness. Absolutely. Very true. All right, we will stop at this point. Thank you so much for joining on this very special last night of Hanukkah. It's a very special night. It's a very powerful night, the last night of Hanukkah. It's very time of a lot of beauty and potential and miracles. So it's nice to be able to learn about God on such an evening. And looking forward to seeing